I'm an American. So, I didn't grow up with Doctor Who. As a super nerd, I was aware of Doctor Who from a young age, but that was the kind of nerdy shit reserved for the dark back rooms of the conventions, the places where the Babylon 5 fans hang out. In college, I finally saw a few episodes from the 2005 revival. I was intrigued. So I started watching more and more episodes. In between term papers and the weekly grind of college, I would start an episode, and then halfway through I would turn it off and work on my homework until I burned out, and then returned to the doctor for mental nourishment. During the course of my bachelor's, I had watched all of the show from the revival that had been released up to that point. I then went back in time and tried to watch as much as classic Doctor Who as possible. The show started in 1963 and ran until it was canceled in 1989. There are 3 Doctor Who movies. The first 2, which are Daleks and the Invasion of Earth, which are retellings of older episodes with Peter Cushing playing the Doctor. These films tend to be regarded as non-canon. Peter Cushing's Doctor's not the Doctor. He's a Doctor. Then in 1996, we would get Doctor Who the movie, 7 years after the show went off the air. We would get a new Doctor, Paul McGann, would remind the world why we needed a doctor. As a super nerd, I fell in love with the history of the show. I was hunting down documentaries like The Doctors on DVD. Then something happened that changed my entire opinion of Doctor Who. I was at Comic-Con with a friend of mine who is Scottish and grew up with Doctor Who. We walked past the Doctor Who display, and I said something about the intellectual level of the show. He stopped me and said, "You know it's a kid's show, right?" This show that talked about evils of genocide prompts thinking through the problem and advocates progressive values is a kid's show. This is the UK's version of Mr. Rogers. A show that doesn't sugarcoat the meaninglessness of war. Meanwhile, in America, our kid shows get canceled when they don't sell enough toys. It changed my mindset on what is acceptable when writing kids' books. If Doctor Who can talk about the fragility of man or the meaninglessness of war, then those subjects were no longer off limits to me when writing a kid's book. Being a Doctor Who fan has made me a better writer.